Hello, everyone, and welcome back to RPG Roulette, the actual play podcast where everyone's the game master normally. But once again, welcome to episode 2 of Martingale because we have the same game master this time. We're very happy. Yes, to still have.
There's only one game master.
No way.
Yeah.
Tim Allen were sound .lav.
Yes, we have
in
with
a
us
way-
again Will Donaldson, creator of Dead in the West, who's going to be continuing our story here. In
Hello,
Martingale.
cowboys and cowgirls, villains and varmints, rustlers and hustlers.
Dibs on being a hustler.
Other et al, etc. I mean, I like to think that in a way you're still all like the masters of your own games.
Right, yes. I am the master of Deacon's game. Hello, if you don't know who I am and you're on episode 2, again, weird choice, but my name's Keaton Sample, and on this special little mini-series, I'm playing a character named Deacon Volt.
And my name is Luke Howard, and I am playing Josephus Featherswallow, a completely reputable business person.
Hey, this is Noah, and on this show, I am playing a farmer named Floyd Davis.
This is Hunter. I play Reginald Johnson.
And I'm Will Donaldson, and I represent the cruel hands of fate, uncaring, detached, emotionless.
Cold and hairless.
Sometimes they may softly caress the cheeks of these 4 brave cowboys.
I shudder.
Other times they may wrap their cold, clammy fingers around their necks. And sometimes they'll be somewhere else doing something else.
Who knows where they will be?
You
But they will
can't
be
expect the
somewhere.
hands. You can't expect the hands of fate to always be wrapped around someone's neck.
There's a lot of
sometimes they're
fucking
holding
fate to
forks
go
and
around,
feeding
yeah?
the mouth of fate. You know.
Yeah. Alright, are you guys ready to roll some 8-sided dice? Or potentially even dice with more or less sides?
I'm already rolling, man.
yeah.
Already rolling.
A small bell chimes as the door to a general store is slowly opened, filling the otherwise stark building with a brief, momentary warmth. In steps Josephus Featherswallow, energized by a strange cocktail of purpose and anxiety. He peruses the business's shelves with great curiosity and interest, while his man Deacon waits patiently towards the front of the store, his arms crossed. Josephus, what are you looking at and what are you doing?
So Josephus is buying, the anything that you might need if you're about to head out on the road. He's just trying to refill his stocks. Beans, corn, ham, salted meat, and maybe some chemical alcohol in order to brew some of his concoctions, and maybe a little bit of chloroform. Because he happens to see that, I think, on the shelf, and so
You're perusing the shelves very thoroughly, I see.
I am, yeah. I gather up my things that I would need, and I head over to, I assume, the counter where the shopkeep is.
The shopkeeper is a middle-aged man who is trying to hide his bald spot with a quite obvious and embarrassing comb-over. He's sort of leans and follows you as you move around the store, as if trying to keep both of his eyes on you.
Hello there. You must be the proprietor of this fine establishment.
He nods and says, anything I can help you with?
No. Your shelves are quite calculated, and everything has a place, and I've been able to find everything I've needed. And I start setting things on the counter.
And he says, You're new here, huh? Don't think I've seen you around.
Well, I don't know why you would have. No, we came into town. We are on special errand for the mayor.
He says, oh. You know what? Make some sort of talk roll. You're not lying, are you? Yeah, make a steady talk roll.
Yeah. That's going to be a 7.
He says, "Oh, you're working with the mayor. That's pretty interesting. What has he got you doing?"
Oh, well, it's you see, it's we are.
Is this for the museum?
Yes, it is for the museum. We are going to help enrich the town's, already very interesting history. We are going to enrich the culture of the town by going
he's nodding along.
Yeah, and retrieving some very special items for the museum.
Special items for the museum?
Certainly, that's why I'm amassing some all of the necessary food and cleaning agents we would need for when we discover some of these items. That's why I point.
He keeps nodding. He keeps nodding along. Fairly interested. What's Deacon doing during this spiel?
Sorry. I think exactly that. He was just dozing off, arms crossed, leaning up against. How long has it been since we left the mayor's house?
I want to say this is the following morning. I think he allowed you all to stay in, either your own homes or the saloon. The saloon has some spare rooms, as Nat was in the other day.
Gotcha. Yeah,
which includes Reginald as well.
Yeah, last night I read that letter that I pocketed off of, I think his name was Dart's body.
The letter reads thusly: Dear Mr. Duhart, as I have the best penmanship of the three of us, the dishonor of writing you this missive has fallen on me. I apologize for this course of action. Know that in my life, I have always tried to avoid the ways of a thief. However, this situation is more dire than I have ever found myself in. Mr. Duhart, something is always happening. Something is always changing. Things just build and build, and I can't stand the building anymore. It's cold, and I can't survive on promises. You are always a good employer to us, and I truly apologize that these actions will likely hurt you. I never wanted to be a snake. You will not catch us. We have taken your best ponies. We will treat them well, and we will keep them warm. Yours faithfully, Matthew, Alexander, and Dart. P.S. Dart is sorry he called you a Yankee. He says he thought England and New England were the same thing.
Cool. Noted. Yeah, I think I think I'm still waking up then. I don't think Deacon's a morning guy. And so I'm just kind of here. I'm a presence in case someone tries to swindle Josephus, but I'm not going to notice that. He's going to have to call on me.
The big guy, the storekeeper says, Your friend want anything?
Oh, well, we have such a meager supply of coin to hand out. Of course, we will be paid in full once we've completed, the job for the mayor, but as it is right now, we probably wouldn't be able to afford such...
He didn't give you an advance or anything?
A small advance, yes, but we figured you never know what you might come across out there in the wilds, especially at a time such as this, bandits and brutes out upon the road. So we would rather not stockpile anything,
Looking a little concerned. He's ringing you up as you're saying this. He's sort of tallying all your items up, and he says, well, that's 556.
556,
you say? At your veritable small little mountain of cans and bottles.
Yes, very well. And there's absolutely no way that we might be able to lower the price at all. I mean, we are on special duty for the mayor, after all. I've noticed that this can in particular seems to be dented quite a bit. And I point at one of the cans where there's like a tiny dent.
He leans forward and looks at it and says, I mean, still corn.
I'll just walk up and stand right next to him. I won't say anything. I'll just stand there, all big.
Make some sort of roll. How much
Yeah.
are you trying to reduce it by? Josephus.
So I think Josephus points out, with the possibly damaged merchandise, it's really a gamble. Who knows? By the time we're on the road, it might be disposable. It might be just corroded and be rusted on the inside beyond all compare. So I would say perhaps just knock it down to $5.
Okay, make a roll.
This will probably be. I mean, I'm trying to.
Probably more fast talk,
Fast,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a 7 + 1, 8.
He is very taken in by what you're saying, and he says, well, never let it be said I don't support the arts or culture. And he says, let's call it $4.80 then.
Your generosity only speaks to your character, sir. And I pull out the money and I pay the man and I say, and of course, once we are once we have completed our mission, tourism in this town will skyrocket. And of course, your general town being if not the only one in this town, definitely the most well kept, would certainly prosper with the influx
he is beaming at you.
Yeah.
And looks very proud of himself. And he says, well, after the gambling hall fiasco, I certainly hope so. And he says, you two have a good day now.
And you as well. I gather up all my things and put them in my satchel and then start heading out.
Okay.
Come along, Deacon.
All right.
Right, pleased with yourself after a successful haggling, you leave the store and head out of the building. This confidence is short-lived, however, when you recognize an elderly woman, Eunice Watts. She bought a few bottles of your miracle tonic, hoping it would cure her husband's ailing health. It did not, and he passed away several days shortly after. You look at her, she doesn't seem to have noticed you. What do you do? Do you want to try and avoid her, or...?
Yes, I start walking behind Deacon. Like I let him kind of overtake me and just kind of like put him between myself and her, so I kind of stay out of sight.
All right, I'm gonna make a frontier roll for this little old lady. Let's see. Nope. In fact, she got a 2 on top of having a -1. So, so she passes by without noticing you. As you sort of walk past her, you look back a moment. For a brief moment, you conceptualize this woman. She seems to be idlessly and aimlessly floating through the town, and she turns seemingly for no reason. And you think for a moment that she reminds you a bit like a dead leaf on a stream, just sort of being carried along. And you start heading towards the gambling hall, which is where you were told to meet up with Nat in the morning.
Rather cold for meandering, don't you think, Deacon?
Yeah.
Not a few words, as always.
So, back in the Davis residence, Davis is in his living room with a middle-aged woman with curly red hair, and he's sort of gathering everything up that he needs. There are a number of chickens sort of wandering around the living room. What do you say, Floyd?
And I say, thank you so much, Miss Maggie, for coming in. And it's I don't want to try to ask for no favors or nothing, and know that once this horrible winter has finally gotten past all of us and I am able to start rebuilding everything, I will absolutely come over and help you over on your farm. I do not want you to think that this is some sort of charity or nothing. I will definitely
she puts her hands up as you're speaking and says, now Floyd, we're all in this together. It's a hard winter. I'm well aware of how nasty things have been. And in the corner of the room, sat atop a small perch that you've carved for him, is Hector, a northern screech owl. His amber eyes pierce through his spotty brown feathers, and they're trained on you. And she says, "Now, Floyd, I'm happy to take care of your chickens while you're gone, but I don't know anything about no owl."
Oh, no need to worry. Where we're going, I might need a little extra eyes and ears. And I think I give a small whistle while looking at him, trying to get him to fly over to me.
Hector flies over and lands on your shoulder. He's not used to modulating his own claws or his own strength yet, so he does kind of scratch your shoulder muscles a bit. You know, Hector, if left alone with your chickens, there is a non-zero chance he would go after them. Screech owls are fairly aggressive when it comes to other creatures, especially those of a similar size or smaller than them.
Now, after he lands, I kind of reach up and give him a little scritch on the top of his head and walk over to the other side of the room and pick up my hunting bow and sling it over my shoulder as well.
You also pick up, you have a small perch box that you've made for Hector. It's something you made not long after Hector started living in your house with you. Screech owls, as you've come to know, like the feeling of staying in warm, snug places like this. So I think you maybe hold out your perch box and Hector sort of hops in it and swivels around, so he's sort of basically in a box just big enough to fit him in it, and it probably has some hay in it as well. And you then put this perch box sort of in the breast pocket of your coat, so in turn you and Hector are kind of keeping each other warm.
There, buddy. Let's hit the road. And I think I kind of tip my hat to Miss Maggie as I leave my ranch house.
All right, so you're heading off. So yesterday's hail comforted Big Fork for a short while, leaving the air with a strange and relieving moisture for a time. This has slowly faded, and the streets are now dry and bitter in the chill, as much as they've ever been. Outside of the local gambling hall, Reginald is the first to arrive. Nat sits atop a lean, black and white, snowy, dotted horse. Next to her is a short man with a well-groomed, bright red beard. They seem to be arguing about something. As you approach Reginald, you can... you know what? Do a frontier roll.
All right. Oof. I rolled a nat 1. Plus, yeah, I guess it doesn't even matter what it's plus, because it's...
Nope, doesn't matter.
It's no good.
So I think what actually happens here is you can tell they're arguing about something, and you sort of try to approach sneakily. However, you slip and fall into the mud. And at this point, Nat sort of catches your attention, and she trots her horse over to you. You don't hear what they're saying, and in fact, the man with the red beard looks back and scowls at you and sort of stomps off. And Nat looks down and says, "This isn't a good way to start things off, Reggie."
Still kind of like just sitting in the mud, I look up at her. Well, seems like there's nowhere to go but up from here.
She smiles a little bit at that. At the very least, you notice that the mud is mostly frozen and hasn't actually stained your clothes at all. She looks back at the man with the red beard and says, well, I'm glad I never have to deal with him again. As you sort of pull yourself up, you do notice who that man is. That man is Sheriff Billock, who is the local sheriff in Big Fork. You have spent a few nights in his jail for vagrancy, and he did not care for you too much. But you know that as of basically yesterday, he has resigned, and there's a new sheriff coming to town.
Yeah, good riddance to him, I say.
And at this point, I think Floyd and Deacon and Josephus all show up around the same time.
Good morning. How is everyone today?
Cold, but I guess that's about how it always is here. Past couple months.
What's in the box?
Oh, I think I kind of like open up my jacket a little bit to be like, this is Hector. He's going to be our eyes and ears in the sky.
Everyone make a toughness roll.
Yeah.
Everyone except Floyd make a toughness roll.
That's going to be a 3 for
That's
Josephus.
going to be that's a 3 plus whatever my toughness is.
I got a
2. So
I got a 6.
Okay, let me roll for Nat as well, actually. Okay, Nat also did not do very well. So basically, Floyd, as soon as you open your jacket up, everyone sees Hector's head poking out of the breast pocket with this box behind him. And as soon as the light hits his eyes, he lets out a piercingly loud screech. And you quickly, close it up. So everyone except Reginald sort of covers their ears and sort of says, everyone covers their ears in pain and shock.
The damn hell was that?
Oh, Hector! These are our new friends.
I'm not sure I want to be friends with your friend here.
Oh,
Why? What an interesting creature. Where on earth did you get it?
Well, this cold has been affecting quite everything. I found him on a hunting trip. This little guy stuck out in the woods, seemed to be all alone and by himself. He's not too old, you see, and so I kind of nursed him back to health, and, well, I've been feeding him a little bit with what I got, so, he's my little buddy. My little buddy Al, Hector.
And you're sure that he'll be... Well, I'll just say it quite frankly. The road we're traveling probably is not conducive to lightly feathered creatures.
Oh, no, there's no need to worry about Hector. Listen, I've trained him to be my spotter whenever I go out hunting and everything. So, listen, whenever we need some eyes and ears and places that we can't hardly get to, he'll help us out. Trust me.
Very well.
Nat says, how much does he eat?
Oh, not much, and, I let him kind of do his own thing. I just give him a little bit of meat here and there just to make sure he's getting enough nutrition.
And she looks at all of the rest of you and says, well, have you got everything you need? I guess you'll just nod and agree.
Yeah.
So she says, well, get on your horses and follow me.
All right.
And Reginald, if you don't have a horse, I think you're probably given one. I think you're given one of the horses from the wagon from the other day.
That'll work.
I know you've got one on your character sheet, so let's say that's where you got them.
Sweet.
All right. Well, you all hop on your respective horses. How comfortable do you think everyone is on a horse?
I think Reginald's pretty comfortable because I think he did ride one some while he was in the military.
Floyd is extremely comfortable on a horse, especially during the spring and summer months, during, height of the farming season. Floyd is out on his mare Lady, helping out with all, rounding up all of the cattle and everything. So he is very, very comfortable on a horse.
Same. Deacon spent plenty of time on a horse. Not always doing the most reputable things, but he knows his way around one.
Josephus knows how to ride a horse, but he usually is steering a wagon. And so
he was not born in the saddle.
No, he's pretty uncomfortable, but he knows how to ride a horse.
All right.
Could I have spent 45 minutes last night to concoct something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let me roll. All right, that's a 3. Will.
All right.
Okay. You guys will find out later.
Well, maybe. So, you all begin your journey, setting off out of Big Fork. Along the way, Deacon, as you're leaving, you look up and you see you look up towards the mayor's house, and you see the same strange, sallow-faced man staring at you from out the top window as you depart. His dull grey eyes are unblinking in the morning sun, and he sort of just follows you all out of town with his eyes. So, as your horses trot along through the icy mud, it's soon covered by a thin blanket of snow and frost. The tall pines surrounding Big Fork grow ever closer and loom ever larger as you move on. It seems you're barely out of town 5 minutes before civilization has totally given way to the forest. And while the occasional birds chirp and the occasional bundle of snow falls from a tree branch, the woods are still eerily quiet. So much so that at a certain point, Nat, breaking the silence, says to you, Deacon, as if Josephus isn't there, "So, big man, what makes you travel with this guy?"
I owe him. Guy saved my life.
And she snaps her neck around quickly to look at you and says, "Him?"
Him.
And she sort of chuckles to herself quietly and says, "And you believe in owing debts, do you?"
One of the only things.
And she laughs again to herself and says, "You must have done something very bad in a previous life then."
I don't doubt it.
As you continue on into the woods, they are almost alien comparatively to the stillness to the city. Josephus, roll a d10.
Who? Sorry.
Yeah, you.
Josephus, roll a d10.
Okay. I thought I heard my name, but it kind of cut out a little bit. That is a 4.
Josephus, you are particularly struck by a feeling of being completely dwarfed and out of your element. An image enters your head that you find somewhat hard to shake, of you travelling this exact road at night in the cold, pitch-black forest. This image is almost primally scary, and you feel compelled to say something, ask a question, simply voice your thoughts, anything to break the silence of the forest trail.
Does anyone know any trail songs?
Man, I wish that sentence would have come up when I was playing Dale. So bad. But Deacon wouldn't.
I think Floyd just looks up at Adam and it's like, we're out on this feels like we're on some sort of hunting trip. You don't really want to be singing and bringing attention to ourselves unnecessarily.
No, of course not. What was I thinking? Well, Reginald, you fought in the war. Tell us a little bit about your time there.
Well, we trucked from one state to the next, and most places we went, we ended up fighting, and people would die, and we'd go somewhere else.
Riveting.
Nat says to you, Reginald, the man Floyd shot the other day. You served with him?
Yep, he was not the most honorable fella I ever served with.
Still a compatriot, though. How are you dealing with it?
Well, at this point, I've watched so many compatriots fall, sickness, injury, and battle. You just get used to it after a while, I suppose.
I hope to never get that way myself.
I'm sorry if he was a friend.
I don't know if I'd say friend, but when you've fought side by side with somebody, it is a certain kind of bond, I guess.
Well, the apology
Your
still
father
stands.
served as well.
He did. Yeah, he did. Fought for the Union. Didn't get very far up in the ranks or nothing, but he was well respected within his regiment.
Nat carries on a minute and says, "Long shadow cast by that whole thing." So, though you've been moving somewhat briskly, you notice now that you've all slowed down. This wasn't due to conversation or interaction with one another. Without communicating, you all came to the same conclusion that you were simply moving too quickly in this cold, and the air began to bite. So your pace slows down a little bit. So
I think especially as this is kind of happening, just getting that nagging feeling that things aren't 100% right. I do open up my jacket a little bit just so that Hector's head is popping out, just so that I know that his eyes are also flitting about, just to have an extra set of eyes with me.
When you open your jacket up, do you look down at Hector, or do you just sort of keep your eyes on the trail ahead?
I think I do open it up, give it a second, and then kind of just glance down at him to see if he's made any reaction after looking out.
All right. You see Hector's eyes are really wide, and he is poking his head out of his perch box and sort of around to your immediate right.
I think I immediately pull the reins on my horse and just come to a stop and hold up a hand, trying to get everybody to follow suit.
So, Hector, as you look at him, you can hear very quietly sort of a scratching sound that he's making at the bottom of his box. And as you follow Hector's gaze... Oh, you have an ability for this. Roll Frontier and add 3. Yeah, use Hector's frontier rather than yours.
Absolutely. So there'll be a 6 plus 3, so a 9.
Whew. So, following Hector's gaze, you see silhouettes in the snow behind some trees, and you realize that you are being followed very quietly by 3 wolves.
I think
Looking at them, Floyd, you can tell immediately, though they are far away, they are fairly mangy looking and scraggly. And as soon as they realize that you've seen them, they all freeze in place, their sort of paws sort of stuck in the air, as if not moving a single muscle. Make an animal handling roll, just very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I assume you have that.
Oh, I do. 100%
Yeah.
I do. That will be a 6 plus 2, so an 8.
So, you realize 2 things. Firstly, there are 3 wolves following you. They look hungry. For 3 wolves to even consider stalking 5 humans on horseback, they must be desperately hungry. Because a wolf is not stupid. It understands the size and weight disparity between them and you. But they are still following you. Now, this might mean that there are more of them, or it might mean that they are just starving. You also realize at this point, in the phase of quietly stalking, you've seen them. They have, in this moment, lost the element of surprise. If you scare them now, they might just leave you alone.
Yeah, I think what I kind of do is I kind of whistle to everybody to try to get their attention, and I slowly pull out my pistol and then just fire it in their general direction.
Okay, you fire your pistol, and the wolves immediately scatter, running off into the forest. Within a single second of you firing, you've completely lost sight of them. But you know that they were running away from you.
Yeah, I whip around everybody. All right, we got wolves on our trail. We have got to be careful.
Sorry, wasn't you saying something about not singing because it'd be too loud? I'm like rubbing my ear out from the ringing.
Well, it was either, shooting to scare them off or risk us getting attacked by 3 starving wolves.
Yeah.
Nat, looking in the direction of where you fired, quietly says, "Damn, stupid. In this cold, I didn't think we'd have to contend with wildlife like that on the trail." She looks at you, Floyd, and nods and says, "I didn't even see them. Thanks. You're right that we have to move carefully."
I kind of pat my chest where Hector is and be like, "See, told you he'd come in handy." And I holster my pistol.
Do you pat the box or do you pat Hector?
I pat Hector on the head.
Okay, if you had patted the box, I would have had Hector screech again.
Like a fish. You know all those really loud sounds that fish make?
Yes, every time.
Yes.
I hate it when my fish wakes me up and I can't get through it.
I hate it when I hear my fish whining from the other room.
I've imported these new koi fish from Japan. They make this guttural braying sound around midnight.
Yeah. But only on a full moon. It's really weird.
So anyone else want to do anything while you're paused here, or you want to just carry on?
I think Josephus just kind of looks at Deacon and he says, "What a neat animal. Perhaps we could see about taming one of our own. I think that would help us on the road."
I'd like to see you try.
Oh, well, I was thinking maybe you could try. That's not really in my wheelhouse.
I like keeping my thumbs.
Fair point. Fair point.
So you continue riding on, and as you carry on, the daylight hours begin to wane. I think you left fairly early, probably before 9 a.m. And at this point, you've been continuing along this trail. If not for Nat leading the way, you would be thoroughly lost at this point. And the sunset begins to paint the snow a dim orange. Nat has led you to ride close to the nearby incline of a very craggy mountain, whose perimeter is unpredictable and juts in and out. At a certain point, it creates a passage as it moves suddenly inwards. And Nat begins to turn in, and she looks back at all of you and says, okay, you're about to meet the Nesmond brothers. What I've told them is that I've been gathering a group of 4 gunslingers to help them in the heist they want to pull off. Is there anything you want to get out of the way before we arrive, or get in the clear?
I'm not a great shot. Just going to go ahead and put that out there.
And she looks and says, well, you've got your own horse and you can ride it, and you've got a weapon, right?
Well, sure. I do
says-
have a revolver, just a standard revolver, but I don't tell them about my cane yet.
Okay, well, she says, well,
Keep that hidden.
don't get in a shootout with any of them, and you'll probably be okay.
So how do you know these guys?
Fair point.
They don't seem to know you work for the mayor.
She says, no. Our prior sheriff was... And she trails off a bit, and then, trying to find a polite word, says, somewhat lackluster. I make it my business to be aware of the comings and goings of various criminal organizations in Montana. And she says, I found out about the Nesmond brothers and what they were trying to pull off, and I very slowly and very cautiously ingratiated myself with them. They do trust me. And she says, and I think they have a good chance of trusting you as well if I introduce you the right way. And she says, I don't know if any of you will have to use pseudonyms. And she looks at Floyd and says, that's a fake name, Floyd.
Oh.
Sorry, that's a bit mean. I don't know if she'd...
No. Floyd was looking confused. Like, thank you.
She says, if you want to use a false identity, then go ahead. But I'm not sure to what extent it will be necessary.
I consider
think that-
in my head using a false identity because I have some reasons I might want to. But I know for a fact that the first time Josephus needs me, he's yelling out Deacon, and so there's no point.
Josephus says, I think that for these purposes, since my miracle tonic is probably somewhat renowned in these parts, I think perhaps it would be best if I just went by Joseph.
Yep.
All right. Well, here's the story. That Floyd and Reginald, I'll say you two held up the general store in Big Fork.
I think Floyd is just like, his eyes are just so wide, like, I did what now?
Oh boy.
I think I kind of go over to Floyd and I put my hand on his shoulder. Floyd, I know this is not the kind of business that you often find yourself involved in, but just try and look mean and just let myself and Joe and Nat do as much of the talking as possible, alright?
Nat nods and she says, I figure you two know the area and you know the town. You can probably use that to your advantage. I don't know how much they'll ask.
I think Floyd just kind of like nods along. It's like, okay, that's what we got to do.
Josephus, Deacon, I'll just say we pulled off a scam a few years ago and I ran into you two again. Okay?
That will work.
Close
Alright.
to the truth. Best kind of lie.
And she says, and I suppose in one way or another, this is kind of a scam we're all pulling off.
Well, when you put it that way.
Or as Joe would call it, reputable business.
Well, of course.
Floyd just
She
looks
says-
terrified.
If there's anything anyone else needs to ask, now's the time to do it. And
I
at this
got one
point, she
question for
starts-
you now.
Yep.
Guy with death in his eyes. The mayor's house. What's he doing there?
She pauses and she thinks for a minute and she says, he's a last resort. And she starts to ride off towards a collection of shrubs and trees. And yeah.
After she rides off, I want to kind of turn to Deacon. So I figure you're the fella I need to talk to about this. Ideally, this job's going to go the right way, but if things do go sideways, I think there is a chance we will have to fight. And you seem like the most capable in a fight outside of myself. So I just wanted to kind of say, if you see things going south, or if I do, I'll give you some type of signal, and we can hopefully get the jump on these fellas.
Yeah. Listen, before we go meet up with them, let me talk to you folk. I give Josephus a stern look in the eye of like, listen to what I'm about to say.
So as you're doing this, Nat is sort of getting off her horse and putting it with, you notice a couple of other horses nearby some shrubs.
Cool.
And she sees you guys talking and then just gets back to what she's doing. And you get the impression that she, to an extent, doesn't care.
Okay, cool. Good. I basically, what I'm going to say is, Reginald, right? Yeah.
Yep.
If everything goes smooth, there won't be no fighting, but nothing's ain't never gone smooth before. I got a strong feeling the ones we're gonna want to be fighting are these Nesmond folk. They've got some pretty good scores around the area. I heard of them before this, but I got a bad feeling about the man of the mayor's house. And if you listen to this plan, we're joining this gang to take them out from the inside, but one wrong step and whoever this new sheriff coming to town is gonna lump us right in with them. So when the time comes to choose sides and start the fighting, let's make sure we're fighting the right people, okay?
Reggie nods. I think he gets it. You know, he has spent time in the jail of the last sheriff. Like, this makes sense to him that it would be easy for this new guy to just kind of throw us in jail with the rest of them. He's on the same page as Deacon.
Cool. Nice. Before I forget, Noah, give Floyd a point of vigor for the wolf thing.
Ooh, heck yeah. 100%. Let me write that down on my...
And I imagine Reginald and Deacon say this out of earshot of Floyd and Josephus.
I don't mind if Floyd and Josephus heard it. I was thinking I'd probably say that to the group. Out of earshot of Nat, for sure.
All right, well, shall we?
I guess so.
Atop a short incline is the mouth of a cave, with a dim fire crackling inside. After a short moment, a tall figure lurches towards the mouth of the cave, silhouetted against the warm glow therein. He has a scraggy brown beard and a wide-brimmed hat that has, along with his duster, seen better days. The wind whips by him, and you see that he has a pistol holstered somewhat haphazardly at his side, simply tucked into a belt. He stares down at you all, quietly for a moment, his hands at his sides, opening and closing for circulation. Unlike others who you've seen, his eyes are awake. He is alive in the cold. And Nat looks up and says, "Naymond!" And she motions at the four of you and says, "These are the fellas I was telling you about." And the tall man sort of scans you all, looking across, looking at your horses, then looking at you each one by one. And he goes quietly, And she says again, after a moment, looking back at you somewhat nervously, then looking towards Naymond, "What do you think?" And Naymond looks down at you all.
I'm just making direct eye contact with him the whole time.
After a moment, the tall man says, "Well, get yourselves on in here from out of the cold, elsewise you're going to catch an awful chill. I don't you want all you snivelling and shivering while I'm trying to get to know you, so come on in, we got some beans on the pot." And he motions very warmly and friendly with like a big sweeping motion of his arm, being like, come on, get on in. Don't want your beans getting all cold."
Floyd is so confused.
Certainly wouldn't want that. Josephus just heads on in.
And as Naymond sort of walks inside, I'll say this: it's a bit of an incline to get to the cave. You don't quite have to like crawl or rock climb, but you do have to like lean quite a bit forward. It would be a difficult thing to sort of creep up quietly.
Gotcha.
And he says, Desmond, Nat's back. And as you get inside, you are greeted by two figures. One is a shorter man that clearly shares a resemblance with Naymond. They both have the same sort of round eyes and round nose and sort of very expressive face. His hair is somewhat more kempt, and his facial hair gives the appearance of at least a minor attempt at grooming. When you walk in, he very quickly puts down a book at his side, dog-earing one of the pages in a very quick motion. He looks towards you all and exclaims with a enormous toothy grin spreading across his face, "So these are the rustlers and hustlers Nat told us about, huh?" And he props himself up, and you can see that he is about a foot shorter than his brother, and they make quite a distinctive silhouette together. And laying on a dirty tarp near the fire, propping himself up with one elbow, is a man with dusty blonde hair and thick stubble. He is idly poking at a copper pot with a stick that is above the fire, which is lazily exuding steam. He looks at you all kind of uninterested, then looks back at the pot. The short man explains, "I'm Desmond, and this tall drink of water is my brother Namond. The two of us here," and he then motions to the blonde guy, "Three of us, sorry, Carlisle. We are the latest group to terrorize the fine state of Montana, and I see our numbers are growing." And he smiles and motions towards all of you.
Yeah, of course. We're happy to be aboard.
I'm sorry, your name's Desmond Nesmond?
Desmond Nesmond and Naaman Nesmond, that's us.
That's what I was gonna say. I wanted to just say like that is the correct naming energy for RPG Roulette. It has the same energy as like Dusty and Rusty in Rusty Peaks. Just not confusing at all.
They look at each other and says, "I mean, Desmond and Naaman are fairly different names. I don't see how they're confusing."
No, I didn't say it was confusing. And I hop, I make my way further in. I say, didn't say I didn't like it. And I put my hand out and I go, "I'm Deacon."
Both Desmond and Naaman both reach to shake your hand at the same time. And seeing that they do, they both just shake your hand in unison. And at the same time, they both once again reiterate that their names are Desmond and Naaman.
And
I accept
I'm Joseph.
And Naaman looks at you, Floyd, and says, "And who's this straight and narrow young fella?"
Oh, the name's Davis Floyd.
Davis Floyd?
Yeah. Davis Floyd.
Where are you from, Davis?
Wait, that's your name backwards, isn't it?
Yes.
It took me a second.
Without skipping a beat, Desmond says, "Isn't there a Floyd Davis in Big Fork?"
I think there's a Noid Blavis in Big Fork, unless I'm mistaken.
You must... Okay. There are limits. You need to make a fast talk roll. There are limits.
That's a 6 + 1 is 7. I don't know how hard.
All right, that'll do. You go, "Oh, my mistake. Well, sit on down, Davis Floyd."
Thank you. And Floyd just sits down and is just so confused.
And Naaman plops himself down by the fire on top of a knapsack, and he says, "So, tell us all about yourselves. What are your credentials? A real group of banditos and troublemakers, are ya?"
Oh, certainly. Deacon and I have been, running scams around the West for quite a time now.
Tell me one.
Well, sure. There was the great caper of Little El Paso.
As you say this, he sort of scoots closer to the fire, and Desmond sits down next to him, and they say, "Uh-huh."
There we were, in a circle of wagons, surrounded on all sides by angry townsfolk. When Deacon was ready to shoot from the hip, he had 2 shining silver pistols in his hands, and he was ready to gun down this entire town. And I said, "Deacon, no, wait. They have exactly what they need. And I pulled out a concoction I'd put together, nothing more than a simple addition of a few minor chemicals, but it shone like gold. And so I told them that's what it was, liquid gold. They ate it up and went on their way. I said it to them for free. The entire thing couldn't have cost more than, 75 cents. But after that, I was able to sell it again at different places for a pretty penny.
And as you say this, Desmond says, liquid gold only cost you 75 cents? And then after a few seconds he goes, oh! And
it wasn't really liquid gold.
Yeah, he says, yeah. And,
mostly just water and coriander.
Coriander?
That's it.
And their eyes turn to Reginald and say, and what about you, Reginald? They don't say that because they don't know your name. Never mind. After you tell that story, they just look at you and say, what about this fella?
So, my name's Reggie. I fought in the war. Ever since the war, I've been kind of down on my luck, so I decided to come out this way. And ever since I came out this way, I found myself going from one town to another. And every town I go, I rob and pillage and plunder until my notoriety gets to a point where it is no longer advisable for me to stay in that town. And then I mosey to a new place.
Interesting. And the blonde guy, he says, think our beans are done.
And your name was Carlisle, is that correct?
Uh-huh.
Where are you from, Carlisle?
So when you say that, he looks at you, Josephus, with bright green eyes looking right at you, and he says, why you want to know that?
Oh, well, it just seems to be the avenue that the conversation was traveling. That's all. If you don't feel comfortable answering, feel no need.
He says, I'm from here and there, all around, all around.
Yeah, me too. What kind of beans?
He looks at you, and he opens his mouth, and he says, And as he is extending this syllable, you realize, Deacon, it hits you like a brick. You fucking know this guy.
Great.
You know this dude. You and Carlisle very briefly were in the Brigsby organization.
Brigsby, yeah.
In your rougher days. Now Carlisle was in the group for a while. You didn't interact with him too often, but he was in the group, and he was someone who you saw from time to time, and you may have even gone on a couple of jobs with him, though never really spoke to him too much. And he is extending this syllable, and he says, the beans. And he squints at you, and he says, do I know you, friend?
Can't say you do. It hits me
says-
like a brick, but I don't want to start bringing up Brigsby memories with him.
He says, I'm sure I seen your face around here. And he's sort of like moving the stick around in a circular motion in your direction.
Great.
And
Well, Deacon
they-
just does sort of have one of those faces. When I first saw him, I thought he was my third cousin that I'd seen not but 20 years prior.
just making a roll.
Okay, fair.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm just making a roll. Okay. And Carlisle goes, Deacon, I'm gonna say that as he says and he sort of looks down, you do remember one thing about Carlisle. This isn't something you ever experienced or something you ever dealt with, but you remember someone giving him a nickname once. You remember Andrew Brigsby referring to him as Volatile Carlisle in a joking manner.
Great. Fantastic. Yeah, I think I'm a little more on edge now. But I'm gonna play it out.
All right. So, yeah.
I think like, kind of noticing this tension, Reggie just goes in and goes for the beans, basically to kind of take Carlisle's attention off of Deacon.
I would say you have some utensils and you can go for them.
Sweet.
And Nat sort of gets into the mouth of the cave and says, all right, you're getting to know each other. And Naaman says, oh yeah, Nat, we're fast friends by now. And she says, well, that's good to hear.
Floyd looks terrified. He has no idea what is going on. He just told a big old lie, and everybody believed that his name was Davis Floyd. Honestly, I think at this point, he has opened up his jacket a little bit. Is just like stuck his hand inside and is just stroking Hector inside of his jacket to try to comfort himself, because he is just so confused and way in over his head. This has already gotten to be much more intense than he ever thought it was going to be.
I love how this is way more intense than you ever thought it was going to be, but we're just eating beans with some actually kind of nice fellas.
Yeah, they might be on the other side of the law, but they seem nice enough. And then Floyd's over here just like
oh my God,
shaking as he's eating a spoonful of beans in a warm cave.
Yeah. I will say this. Floyd, you have a lawman demeanor, right?
I do.
Well, Carlisle does single you out, and he says, you look like about as straight and narrow as I've ever seen.
Oh.
You sure you're up for this job?
Yeah. No, I'm as mean as they come.
Make a fast talk roll.
That's a 5 minus 1, so a 4.
He squints and he says, I guess we need people to carry things.
That's what I'm good at.
And Nat says, have you two told your 4 new companions what you're even thinking of doing?
I am quite interested to know.
And they both start speaking, and then Desmond looks at Naaman, and Naaman looks at Desmond, and Desmond pats his little brother on the head, and Desmond begins speaking, and he says, well, we were fixing to make Montana history. We reckon we're going to be the first art thieves, and the first train thieves this state has ever seen.
Train?
Mm-hmm. And then Naaman says, yep, that's where all the art is, after all.
And where is all this art heading? What's its final destination?
He says, well, it's heading to Big Fork. They're going to make some sort of museum or something over there. But I tell you what, not all that art's going to make it. And they both, chuckle.
Sounds good. You got a seller? A buyer?
And Desmond says, I mean, the train is, as far as we know, as far as we're to take it, full of art. They're not going to miss a few paintings here and there, are they? And Naaman says, no, I don't think so. And to your question, you've got a cellar. Desmond says, well, actually, Nat says she knows somebody. And Nat says, that's right, I know a fence.
Well, I should say in the short time I've known Nat, I found her to be quite reliable. So I think this plan is wonderful.
And Nat says, thank you, Josephus. Neither of them pick up on that.
Yeah, Josephus just kind of looks at Nat with like his eyebrows go up, like, Joseph.
And Carlisle starts to speak, and he says, on that train, there are gonna be a bunch of paintings. Some of them are from more established European painters, and some are from American artsy folks just trying to make their mark. Additionally, and he looks at all of you, apparently a group of Union veterans have donated a bunch of guns and artifacts and what have yous. He says, looks like in Big Fork they're trying to create a real cultural epicenter. And then Desmond says, we reckon we can take a painting or two each and then just stuff our pockets with whatever knickknacks, trinkets, and paddywhacks are lying around.
Floyd's hand shoots up. What's a paddywhack?
Knick-knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone.
Oh.
Then we'll all go rolling home.
He's nodding his head with zero recognition in his eyes.
It's just a turn of phrase. Just, odds and ends.
Naaman says, "Now, while this was a job my brother and I were keen to undertake, we realized we can't really carry that many paintings, just the two of us, so we went about attempting to hire more friends for the job." And he motions towards all of you.
How did you meet Nat?
They look at each other and they say, "Well, it's kind of hard to say. It feels like we go back weeks and weeks now." And then Desmond says, "Yeah, it kind of feels like Nat met us. Or did we meet her?" And Nat says, "I found out about a job they pulled off in Red Oak and was curious if they wanted to step their game up a little more. And it turns out I was right." And she motions towards them and they say, yes, we were very excited, very excited.
Wait, so Nat's the one who told you about the train?
And the Desmond and Naaman look at each other and then they look at you and they say, No. We knew that there was some art moving around the state and that we wanted a taste of it, but we didn't know what train it was going to be on or when exactly it would be traveling or anything. And Nat says, yeah, but they would have figured it out eventually. They're keen, she says, sort of wagging a finger at them, and they go, we were right on the trail.
Quite.
And then Carlisle speaks up again, and Carlisle says, "Everything on the train will be valuable, but word has it there'll be one especially valuable painting on board. Apparently some European named Donald Flynn found himself in Virginia in the mid-70s, where he made a meager living painting pictures. Apparently, he regretted leaving home so much, he topped himself, painted one last picture of his sweetheart before walking into the ocean." And Nat's ears Nat sort of is paying more attention now, and she says, "Wait, you don't mean..." Does anyone have art history or cultural know-how or something like that?
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
I do have appraising experience, but I don't think that would come into play until I actually saw something.
No, that's okay. And he says, the name of the painting is Erin Gabral. And Desmond says, "Last I heard, that painting was worth $2,800. And
I spit out my
Naaman
beans.
Naaman says, "I heard 25, but still a lot of money."
I can't imagine why anyone would pay that much for some oil on a canvas.
And Carlisle says, "As opposed to some oil in a bottle."
Fair point.
"Unfortunately, Donald Flynn painted a lot of portraits, and I don't know what Erin looks like." And Desmond and Naaman both shake their head and like, nope. But on the plus side, each painting there must be worth $50 each, in addition to whatever we can stuff in our pockets. So I think we're gonna make bank even if we don't end up getting the Erin. And Carlisle says, "I think we can find it if we're careful."
Maybe they labeled them.
Nat says, potentially they labeled them. I think it's best we maybe leave the Erin and just try to take some of the easier stuff. What do you guys think?
Well, I would think that if that one painting was worth so much, there'll be some sort of extra security or something around it. Like, it will be kept different from the others in some way or something. I think it would be obvious which one it was by the details around it being different.
Nat says, fair assumption.
I turn to the Nesmond brothers and I go, "Didn't you say something about making Montana history? You want to be the first art thieves to steal some mediocre paintings, or you want to be the first one to steal some fancy sought-after paint?"
Make a hard talk roll.
Okay. Ooh, that
convinced
is
me.
talking. Other side of the sheet is a +1, so that's a 7.
They both stand up and they say, "We want to make history," almost in sync with one another.
And make history, we will. And Josephus also stands at that.
Nat stands up and says, "Or maybe we'll just take whatever paintings we can get and not risk dropping the Ehrengebräu in the dirty, dirty winter mud." And I'm going to make a roll for her. Absolutely not good enough at this point. And Naaman and Desmond say, "That's right. We're going to get the Ehrengebräu and we're going to keep it from the mud."
Excellent.
I think Floyd kind of meekly says, like, kind of just ask into the room, "Will there be other people on the train?"
And Carlyle says, "They may have a security detail on the train, but from everything we know, this is a real ramshackle job." And Nat says, "Yes, it will be all right. The Big Fork train station is only a few months old even. There aren't really many reasons or people coming through there."
Are we thinking we're gonna have to kill anybody?
Desmond and Naaman look at you and go, "Well, no, we're not going to kill anybody. It's pretty easy. If there's anyone on the train, we can incapacitate them, tie them up, but it won't be too bad. Don't worry. We're not going to have to hurt anyone." And then Naaman says, "We might have to scare someone or hurt them a little bit, but we're not going to kill anybody."
I want to look at Carlisle and see how he reacted to them saying that.
Do a frontier roll.
This is going to be a 5.
Carlisle did not react at all. He is still kind of just idly poking his beans.
Okay, I was more just trying to, I just wanted to get a read on if, like, he was kind of, like, eyeballing Floyd for saying
he did.
that.
He did not react to what they said in the slightest.
Cool. Sounds good.
And Desmond and Naaman look at you, Josephus, and they say, Naaman says, "You seem to have all your ducks in a row. Can we ask you something?"
Why, certainly. Go ahead.
And they say, "Well, this is a little embarrassing, but how do we rob a train?"
How indeed? Well, first, I suppose we would need to know the track that it will be on, so that we can know the surrounding area and how best to approach.
Carlisle says, "We know where the track is. Cuts through the forest, right through."
Through the forest. Okay, that's good. That means that, if it's cutting through a forest, then we'll likely be able to
maybe
hide ourselves fairly well behind some tree coverage.
Maybe a hour ride from where we are.
Okay. When does the train come? Do you know?
Naaman says, "We got a couple days."
Okay. Well, perhaps then we can set up some, we can dig up some shrubs in order to better hide ourselves along the tracks, so that anyone, like engineers or people on board, wouldn't notice anything out of the ordinary. Once the first engine goes past, then perhaps we hop on our horses, ride up alongside, and jump on board.
Nat says at this point, "The train may be going a bit fast for that.
Yeah.
Maybe better to get it to stop first."
But how long does it take to stop a train? Does anyone know how long it would take to stop a train?
Well, one way you could stop it real quick is to destroy some of the track.
Well, that's a ridiculous idea. Why would anyone do that?
Let's all deadpan stare at our microphones. Then I'm gonna go, we don't want to derail the train. We'll destroy all the stuff we want to steal. We want to stop it. You put something in its way, make it hit the brakes.
"That's a good idea, Deacon," says Nat, who is kind of pacing around the cave like a school teacher at the minute. And says, "A very good idea from Deacon. Does anyone want to pick this up from where he is?"
Well, stopping the train would also allow us to keep hold of our getaway, have horses stationed there. So that
Hard to jump off a train holding Peytons.
Fair point. True
She
that.
nods. She nods. Great point. Great point. Great point.
Perhaps we could get a wagon to keep all of the paintings in.
Well, you can take
And that
more.
says, wagon, so you can take more. Yes, this is going above and beyond, Joe. Really above and beyond. Certainly, we could procure a wagon. How would we get the train to stop?
Well, we use the very same wagon.
Oh,
We leave the wagon
interesting.
on the tracks. The train must stop for fear of causing damage to the engine if it would hit the wagon and destroy it. Wood flying everywhere can't be good for a train. And then, once the train is stopped, perhaps we shouldn't be in the wagon just in case the train decides to just plow on through. But, we come from alongside, overtake the train, we transport paintings from the train to the wagon while some people keep the denizens on board subdued, at which point we load the wagon up, make off with our haul, and maybe lay low for a few days and then take it to your fence.
She says, a good idea. I think the train will probably stop for a wagon. And she trails off a minute and says, yes, that will probably work. Sure. And Naaman says, we don't got a wagon, though. And then Desmond says, I bet I know who knows how to get one.
Well, I saw a particularly gaudy wagon inside of Big Fork just a few days ago when we passed through. Perhaps we could go back and I bet they would be... It looked like it hadn't been used in quite some time. Everything inside was all frozen. I took a peek inside.
Carlisle says, I think now that we're all together, we should maybe try and stick together as much as possible. And Carlisle looks at Nat and says, you think you can steal a wagon for us? And then Nat looks over at Carlisle and says, well... And then she looks at you, Josephus. And then the Nesmond brothers both go, yeah, we bet Nat could fix one real easy. And she says, well, I would prefer to stay here and keep an eye on things. And then Naaman says, well, you know the route from here to Big Fork better than anybody. And she says, that's true. And they say, then Desmond says, and you can ride pretty quick. And she says, yes, this is also true. And then Carlisle says, plus you know your way around Big Fork, and I believe you mentioned that you've manned a wagon before. And then Nat says, yes, the logic is really mounting that it makes sense for me to do this, isn't it? And she looks at you, at the four of you, and says, well, if we're going with the wagon plan, I suppose it makes sense for me to leave and then come back with the wagon.
Sounds
Will
like
you
it.
all be okay here while I'm gone?
Well, if you absolutely need someone to go with you, I would be more than happy to.
I'll see you all shortly then.
Very well.
She says, putting her hands up, and says, it's about sunset now. And she says, do you want me to go now? It's getting dark. And Desmond and Naaman say, no, of course not. You stay the night, Nat. And then Carlisle says, yes. And then
Sorry, that was just the timing of that.
and then Desmond says, let's have a vote. And then Naaman says, no, she's got to stay. What are you guys saying?
Oh, surely she should stay the night. It's too dangerous to go out there at this point of this hour.
Yeah, we saw some wolves on the way in. Someone riding out alone at night. Not good odds. We
Okay.
do want her to come back with the wagon, right?
Definitely.
Nat says, all right, then I guess I'll leave in the morning. And she sits down, and it is at this point like pitch black outside. And while the fire is helping, it's still a bit chilly in the cave. And Carlisle says, well, that's it for me. And he basically stops propping himself up with his arm and then just rolls over to face the other way.
Excellent.
And within moments seems to be snoring.
I walk over to Nat and I try to bring her to a different part of the cave where I can have a word.
All right, you sort of take Nat away towards the mouth of the cave.
And I start talking in like a reasonable voice where like people could overhear what I was saying, and I say, "So let me tell you about the wagon I saw, so you know which one of which I was speaking." And then as I lead her along, that's kind of like they assume we're talking about the wagon, and we are talking about the wagon. But I'm going to lead her
at
along
this
and
point,
say,
Desmond has gotten his book out and is thumbing through it. So it's Reginald and someone make a frontier roll.
8 plus 2, 10.
Okay, that's much better
Okay,
than mine.
that's perfect. What you can see is that Desmond is reading a book called Adventures on the Trail! And the subheading is Cowboy and Cowgirl Adventures! And then underneath that it says for boys. And you can tell that this book is well read. Several of the pages are dog-eared. He has probably gone through it many, many times before. And he is reading it with a big, warm smile on his face. And basically still kind of excitedly turning the pages as he reads through it. So what's Josephus talking to Nat about?
"So Nat, what the hell is going on?"
I can ask you the same thing. Apparently, I'm going back to Big Fork in the morning to steal your wagon.
Oh, good. So you knew that it was my wagon I was talking about, yes. Well, I mean, it's the best way to stop the train, don't you think?
And she says, yes, I was thinking you could maybe cut a pine tree down and put that on the tracks. I think your idea will work just fine, but the pine tree will take longer to be moved out the way. Look, it doesn't matter. I'll get the wagon.
It's just... The pine tree would take longer to get out of the way, so the train would... But we're going to be going in the opposite direction of the train anyway, so it's not like it's going to go backwards. And also, I wanted to make sure they felt like we were on their side, you know, and if I proposed the wagon, we're able to, he does air quotes, get away with more paintings, you know, therefore, I'm feeding their ego, okay? That's what we're doing.
Nat says at this point, yes, I appreciate this, but please don't go after the Eranga Brow. Please, it's enough to make them... It's enough for them to rob the train. They don't need to take the most valuable painting on there and, I don't know, wipe their butts with it or something.
No. I know a valuable painting when I see one. I've seen many in my travels, but I will assure them that a different painting is the Eranga.
And she says, okay, well, I'm
Again, we're
sure the
feeding
mayor
into
would
their
appreciate
egos.
that.
So, but also, how did you find them? I also thought that they were a little more well-renowned, which it seems that they are somewhat bumbling, if you understand my meaning.
She pauses a moment and says, all I can do is assure you that the Nesmond brothers are career criminals. They have committed various heists, stick-ups, and they are competent at what they do.
All right. Very well. Oh, and I should say, when you get the wagon, it will say Josephus Featherswallow in big gold letters along the side of it. It might be best if you paint over that black and then paint a different name in big gold letters so that they don't see Josephus and then think they could be Joseph. You know, it's better to just do a whole wipe.
You want me to paint your wagon?
Yes, maybe put like Bartholomew Everman. Why, there's a name.
Okay. All right.
It only makes sense.
David, show me that owl. God damn it.
I think back in the cave, I think, again, Floyd is realizing things are way over his head, but seeing which of the brothers was reading again?
Desmond.
Desmond. I think as he's sitting there watching Desmond read, I think he's going to be like, excuse me, how long have you been in the thieving business, if you don't mind me asking?
Desmond says, Well, me and my brother Naaman, we've been thieving and stealing and robbing and hornswoggling about a year.
What all have you been stealing?
Well, we robbed a convenience store. We've robbed a few carriages that were had fancy folk with fancy wares. Robbed a cutlery store. Got some nice plates. And Naaman says, and of course, one time we did technically rob a bank. And then Desmond says, that is true. That was us. And he goes back to looking at his book.
So, with all the things that you steal from all these people, what do you do with all of it?
They say, well, we go back to our lives, we spend it, and after a couple weeks or months, we go back to thieving again.
But why do you thieve? Why do you steal from people?
Well, and Desmond looks down and he says, it's a little embarrassing, but we want to be legends. And Naaman says, figures of the old West.
I mean...
Let me do that again. Figures of the great frontier. And they both nod, and they say, it's the only thing to be these days.
Well,
How'd you meet? I'm there with you. I'm not with Josephus. I want to ask while Carlisle's asleep. I want to ask, how'd you guys meet Carlisle?
They say, oh, well, few weeks back we needed an extra pair of hands, and we'd been talking to some rough and tumble folk in a saloon, and he was the best man for the job.
You haven't known him long?
No, only a couple weeks, and he doesn't really say too much either.
Alright.
And at this point he gets back to just eagerly reading his book again.
I think Floyd looks at Deacon and just gives him a look of just confusion, but also like he looks sad. He looks kind of sadly at Deacon.
And
Do I see you looking at me sadly?
Oh yeah, I mean, I just look you in the face and like kind of like shrug.
Like, what you looking at, kid?
Oh, he just then sticks his hand inside of his jacket again and starts stroking Hector again.
And Nat, looking out over all of you, says, well, boys, rest up. Can't be an easy thing to rob a train. And you all start preparing for bed. And you, Deacon, as you lay your head down, are overcome with this strange, unfamiliar feeling of anxiety as you go over all of the eyes that have been trained on you today. From the grey, unblinking eyes of Mayor Duhart's man up in the manor, to the squinting, inquisitive eyes of Carlisle, who now sleeps just a few feet away from you, to the hungry yellow eyes of the wolves that now prowl and roam outside. And you realize that for the first time in a long time, you don't feel like muscle, you feel like prey.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of RPG Roulette Martingale. And thank you again to Will for coming on the show and leading us through his system. It has been an absolute blast, and I hope everyone listening is having as much fun with these episodes as we are recording them. We've been on hiatus here for a little while, so it's nice to get back into the groove of role-playing before we kick things off later here next month. But yeah, seriously, if you are from our audience, go check Will out. You can buy the game Dead in the West. It's the link's in the description. It's on his Gumroad, and you can just go check out his YouTube channel, Infernaut. It's pretty cool. He does stuff other than RPG systems, and he's got some pretty good videos out there. Please go check those out. And if you're listening to this on Will's YouTube channel right now, hi, welcome to RPG Roulette. I hope you're enjoying the show. But here at the end, I've got some programming notes to share with everyone. Some exciting, some less exciting, but it is what it is. Exciting part is we are right around the corner from starting up our next real roulette main series, RPG Roulette 0. That is going to be releasing in April, coming up next month. The less than exciting part is we have decided not to release our special ace that we have talked about in the past. Moreover, we didn't record it, don't worry. We have decided that we want to spend our time and energy here in the month before Zero's launch on making Zero the best series it can be. We are super excited for year 3 of RPG Roulette. And we really want to kick Zero off with a bang. So expect to hear more about RPG Roulette Zero in the coming weeks. Keep an eye out on our social media and on our website, rpgroulette.com, for news. I believe we are working on a trailer right now for Zero that should be dropping at the end of the month. And yes, we are very excited for the future of this show. And here at the end, I always like to thank our high rollers on the Patreon for your support. So thanks so much to Monohim and Tabor TCU, and to our new high roller, Graham Robertson, for your support on the show. It means a ton. It allows us to have new sound libraries. It allows my editing to be a little bit better. And it is a real honor to have people out there who like our show enough to give us money. It's weird, but we are still getting used to it, and I'm rambling now. Wow, it's turned into a ramble, hasn't it? I don't think I have anything else to say other than thanks so much for listening. We're sorry for the delay on this episode. Scheduling with someone, across an ocean in another time zone, it can be an adventure, but we're making it work. We will continue to release Martingale throughout this hiatus before Zero starts next month. So keep an eye out on Will's YouTube channel and here in the podcast feed. And we will see you again next time with the next episode of RPG Roulette Martingale.